Hello humans, it's just Martine. New year, new rules. Let's do this. Okay, so to be completely honest, it's December 3rd, 2020. But some of my BookTube friends and I had this idea quite a while ago, and they're all doing it as like a January thing. But first of all, I don't do TBRs. So we're not really gonna go down that road. And then second of all, I'm poor, so I can't just like buy books. So instead, I'm trying to rent these from my library. I'm reading them when the holds come in because I don't want to like lose the holds and risk not being able to read it in time and stuff. There are already books that like I don't know if I'm going to be able to read in time for this. So yeah, so anyway, the basic concept of this is some of my closest BookTube friends and I started a Google Sheets, and we each chose several options for like books that we love and recommend and such, and we're all going to read like one from the other's people's lists. Everybody's doing it differently. Some people are vlogging it, some people are doing like multiple videos out of it. I'm going to do this one video, not because I don't want to make more content, but because I'm starting this so early. It will be easy just to keep this in one file and know what I'm doing. That's where we're at. First read, just because it happened to come in first, is Ash Princess, recommended by Janessa from Books with Nessa. So let's get to it. All their channels will be linked down below. I highly recommend every one of them. They're amazing. I'm gonna start reading now. Cool. Okay, the other day when I started this video, I read like 10% of Ash Princess, and it's intriguing so far. I don't really know where it's gonna go, but I'm firing up my fire. Firing up my fire. I'm turning on my Amazon Fire so that I can read some more of it, and I'll update you about how I'm feeling once I do that. Alright, so I'm 50% of the way through Ash Princess, and I'm enjoying it so far. There are some things that feel a little repetitive, and though I'm not sure if I trust the build up to it, I do believe that Prince Soren is genuine, even though I feel like there hasn't been enough time and build up for them to actually be interested in one another. He seems like a good person. I don't like that he has long hair. I try not to imagine it like that, but like I really appreciate his character. Like I think he's a well-written character on the whole. Crescentia is annoying. Kind of the point. Yes, she's done nice things for Thora and all that, but like, I don't know. She's just boy crazy and inconsiderate most of the time and like shallow, and I don't love that. But like I'm interested to see what's gonna happen. Either she's going to lose her people or she's going to lose those she has grown to love. So far, like halfway through, I'd say it's a solid fantasy story, which is high praise for me because I don't typically read fantasy and I don't typically like fantasy. So I just finished Ash Princess, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm about to put it in to Goodreads. My thoughts are as followed. It was a pretty solid YA fantasy. However, YA fantasy is really not my genre. I was explaining it to my sister and she agreed completely because we have similar feelings about the genre, but like, so it's not as complex as adult fantasy, so we don't want it to take as long as it takes to read adult fantasy. However, it is hard to push through. I will read for only a couple of minutes and it will feel like it has been 1,000 years. So even though this was like 452 pages, it felt like it was taking forever to get through. But the world building was really good. It's set up nicely for a second one. Like I understand why people like it if they like the genre of YA fantasy. Personally, I think the only YA fantasy I've ever really loved was the Six of Crows duology, and that's because it was a heist book. I'll be real with you, like heists are my thing. I understand why Nessa likes this book, for sure. It's just not my genre. Okay, so I was saying that like I didn't know how I felt about Crescentia, and for a moment I was like, did I misjudge her? Like, was I bad? And then at the end I was like, nah, I don't like her. Prince Soren, not really sure about him, whether or not he was a good love interest. I don't understand why he loved Theodosia. I don't think he ever explained why he liked her. I think it would have made him a better love interest if we could get that perspective, because it kind of just felt like you knew he was interested in her, but you didn't know why. And I don't feel like that's a spoiler, because as soon as his character is introduced, you like know he's into her, but like I don't know why. And if it was explained, then not enough for me to remember it. So you might be wondering, why did you pick this out of all of Janessa's choices if there were other genres you could have picked from? And that's simply because I had to go with what was available from my library at the time. So I went with this, and I'm not upset that I read it. Like, I think it's solid, and if I'm going to spend my time reading a YA fantasy, I'm glad it was a good one. Like, this was a solid recommendation. It's just not my genre. So If you like YA fantasy, odds are you probably like this book, and in fact, you've probably read this book. But for me, it was good, but it wasn't like my new favorite thing. I'm 25% of the way through my second read for this challenge. It's one of Bailey's picks, and it is The Duke Who Didn't. Okay, so I found the beginning intriguing, but then we got to the part where she was talking with her dad about the sauce, and we introduced the sauce, and I was like, I'm not sure I find that interesting, but we'll see where it goes, because now things have continued in that plot line, and I think I'm getting more interested in it. But I do have to say that Jeremy, the main male protagonist, has something that I am an absolute sucker for in every book: funny characters. I love nothing more than funny characters. That's one of the reasons why I loved the Illuminate files, because so many of the guys were just so funny. There's nothing I love more. That's why I'm dating Harris. There's just something about funny characters that is utterly charming to me. So if that is the reason that Bailey likes this book, or one of the reasons, I completely understand, because Jeremy is so funny. The banter, pristine. We love to see it. So I think I'm enjoying it so far. Good stuff so far. Bailey, I'm liking it. This morning I finished The Duke Who Didn't. Right now I'm making mac and cheese. The Duke Who Didn't is the funniest romance book I've ever read. Solid recommendation from Bailey. So good. Easy 5 stars. Almost everything about it was terribly impeccable. Like, I can't give a formal review of this because my thoughts are just all over the place, and also I'm mid-making mac and cheese. If you want a recommendation for like crappy mac and cheese, the Walmart Great Value brand, so good. Almost as good as The Duke Who Didn't. It was everything. There's nothing else to say. It was everything. If you like funny, charming characters and you want discussions about perfectionism and being too busy and stuff, like, you need to read this book. It's so good. Bailey's pick was a win. I'm about a quarter of the way into House of Salt and Sorrows. This is one of Ashley's picks. It is very intriguing so far. Dark and atmospheric and visions involved, and just, I'm intrigued to see what's happened. I was under the impression that this was a fantasy book for some reason. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I was anticipating, to be quite honest. I just finished House of Salt and Sorrows, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This book had the horror of Rosemary's Baby with the atmosphere of the most stereotypical dark and stormy night. You could hear the waves crashing against cliffs. You could hear the screams. Like, it was just so dark. So if you don't know, The House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig is a retelling of the folk story The 12 Dancing Princesses. It's a German story, is what Wikipedia told me, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong. And I looked it up after because I'd never read the story. I'd only heard that this was a retelling of it, and I read a synopsis of it again on Wikipedia, so like, don't come for me if this is wrong. But I understand where the elements came from, but this just grew on it so much. This turned it into something totally different than the original story was, but in like the most intriguing way. I really can't say much about it without giving away everything that's fun about discovering it. Like, there are certain tropes that I could tell you are involved, but I had so much fun discovering that those tropes were involved that I don't want to tell you what they are. So Ashley, this was a solid pick, and it's a fantasy, so a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me for fantasy is like a wildly incredible rating. 4.5 out of 5 stars, already an incredible rating, but like, yes, I think the only thing that knocked it down half a star for me was the fact that the last third was just so hard to focus on. I have heard from some people that when they get to big action sequences, or like the climax of the book is coming, they slow down in the reading, but my mind is always like, we're so close to the end, we're so close to the end, that I speed up, and sometimes that makes it really hard to grasp what's going on. And when it comes to the complexity of the last third of this book, that was kind of a disadvantage. Additionally, I don't really know how I feel about Cassius as a character, but I really liked our main female protagonist. She was great. Annalie, a strong female character, smart, decisive. She stuck to her guns, and I loved her. On to the next one. I just finished with The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I read this for Stasia's pick. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was a really fast read for me. Like, I had to stop because of my New Year's reading challenge, which you'll have seen before this, but overall, it was a really quick read for me because it is very much a YA. Like, it's a YA and it's supposed to be a YA, and it reads like one, but with the flair of Elizabeth Acevedo, whose writing is just so pretty. And I think I might even like her writing better as prose because you don't necessarily expect such lyrical, poetic lines from prose, and so when they happen, it's even more like, than just the whole thing being in verse and like a couple lines here and there landing. Even though I do really like her work in verse. I've read Clap When You Land, and this came out before that one. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's about a teen mom who is just trying to finish high school and figure out what she wants to do with her future, and I thought it was very sweet and wholesome, and her abuela kind of reminded me of Jane's abuela from Jane the Virgin, her family type style, and I don't know, they just reminded me of them. She just loved cooking and her daughter and her abuela, and I loved it. So 4.5 out of 5 stars. Great pick, Stacia. And then I also started the audiobook for The Glass Hotel 2 days ago or something, and I'm about 25% of the way through that. It's Nicoletta's pick, and so far I'm enjoying it. I didn't really know what to expect from it. It's from the same author as Station 11, which I read last month. You can kind of tell, but also the storytelling in this reminds me of a very specific book that I thought of the other day but didn't write down to mention, but it reminds me of that. I know that's not helpful. So far it's about a brother and a sister, Paul and Vincent, and they're living very interesting lives. At one point they both work at this hotel called the Kite, and I think that's the Glass Hotel in reference. Lots of things happen, and I don't really know how to describe it, but so far I'm enjoying it. So that's the update there. Okay, so I just finished The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, and I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So basically, there are a couple things to note. So this is the same author as Station 11. I read it really recently, and so I just happened to notice some things about the author's writing style. Not bad things. One thing that she does really well that I really like is full circle moments. Those are really satisfying. So this had not just one, but many full circle moments. I liked this one better than I liked Station 11, so that's interesting to note. If you've read Station 11 and were like, meh, I like this one better. So if you want to give this author a second chance, I recommend this. I believe she's a Canadian author, Canadian set book, white collar crime and stuff. So like interesting stuff going on. I still had some trouble paying attention in some portions, but not as much trouble as I had when I read Station 11. I listened to both on audiobooks, so there's also that. I thought this was pretty solid. Things happened. This is a terrible review. Oh my goodness, don't look at me. So that's where I stand. I only have one more book to read for this. It's The Kite Runner. I saw The Kite Runner as a movie when I was like pretty young, like probably too young for the movie, but my brother read this in school, and so then we watched the movie adaptation as a family. Lots of subtitles were involved, so it's not like I paid really good attention anyway, and I don't remember much of it. I remember some of the most disturbing parts, so we'll see what happens here. I have also read another book by this same author. I read 1,000 Splendid Suns. I had to read that for class. I enjoyed it well enough. I would say I gave it 4 stars. I don't remember. And part of me feels like if I was going to like one of his books better than the other, it would be 1,000 Splendid Suns, because that's all about different women. This was pre-Goodreads Martine by only a few months, to be honest, but in my mind, it's a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it well enough, but again, not my new favorite thing. So I'm interested to see how The Kite Runner goes. Also, I know that my friend here on BookTube, Danielle from Bookcara, I'll try to remember to also leave her channel down below. She didn't give us picks for this, but I still adore her. She recently read this, and she loved it. So I'm also kind of going to count this as her pick, even though she wasn't doing this. I'm just going to say I'm reading this for her and Melody from Strawberry Lemon Books, so this is for both of them. I hope it doesn't make me cry, because I hate when things make me cry. One of the things that makes this author's work so good and so beloved by so many people is how heavy and real it is. It is one of the things that makes it really difficult for me. It's not that I don't appreciate the skill and honesty it takes to write things like this book. By the way, I'm on page like 124. It is that I simply cannot deal with feeling this much for so long. It feels like no light in his books. And unfortunately, I feel like sometimes that's the reality of the world, right? But some people appreciate being made by art, to feel things. And sometimes that's the case for me. I really love when books make me happy or a little melancholy. It is when a book makes me feel like my soul is ripping in two in some ways that I can't, like I literally don't know how to put into words what I'm thinking, because I had the exact same feeling that I have while reading this and trying to get through this that I had when reading and trying to get through 1,000 Splendid Suns. It is the feeling of like what I read is really good, but the energy it takes to get myself to pick it up is so heavy. I don't know, man. I don't know. The only part pretty much that I remember from the movie happened just a little while ago, and this main character makes me question myself. He feels so cowardly, and he says he's not brave. He makes decisions that I think it's very easy for people to say, how dare you make that decision? How could you possibly do that? But like, I'm sitting here, and one of the things that makes it the heaviest is asking myself, if you were actually in that situation, would you really have done something different? Sometimes I don't believe that I would, in ways that like hurt the worst to my soul. Reading this book feels like getting beat up. I'm gonna take a break for a few minutes before I continue reading. I just finished The Kite Runner. I'm giving it 5 stars. For most of this, I was like, this is probably gonna end up being 4 stars. It's good, I don't love it. And then we reached a point, like maybe 100 or so pages away from the end, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is just going to be 4 stars. I was like, I know exactly how this is going to play out. Like, I've seen the movie before, right? But I don't remember it. So it's like, I know exactly how this is going to play out. And then that is how it played out, but also not really, not at all. I let myself tear up on the last page with the "for you" line. Let myself feel it. I think almost everybody knows the feeling of guilt. Maybe not the same level that the character in this book is faced with, but I think that is a feeling that people share of having done something wrong and not knowing how to make it right to people that matter to us. And I don't know, this was just so vibrant, and like by the end I was feeling comforted by the turns of phrases and, you know, the references to how things were done amongst the Afghan community in this book. And I understand why this is this author's most famous book. Like, 1,000 Splendid Suns was good, incredible, a solid read. That one hurt, right? But this hurt. hurt all the way until the end. And in the end, it still hurt in like a bittersweet way. Melody, what can I say? I'm glad I have a physical copy that I got at the used bookstore. I don't know if I'll ever reread it, but I want to hold it. Does that make sense? Is that a feeling that makes sense? So I finished all 6 books now for this challenge. I'm not going to do a wrap up right now. I don't think I'm in my right state of mind to do that. Oh my goodness, I just dropped this. I'll update you soon and close out this vlog. Okay, so I'm here to wrap up this challenge. I have my notes, let's do it. So first I read Ash Princess. This was Nessa's pick. I gave it 4 stars, but on reflecting, it feels more like a 3 stars to me. It was good, but it was just like, eh. Then I read Bailey's pick, The Duke Who Didn't. I gave it 5 stars. That was an easy one. Then I read Ashley's pick, which was House of Salt and Sorrows. I gave that a 4.5 stars. With the Fire on High, that was Stasia's pick. I gave it a 4.5. Glass Hotel, which was Nicoletta's pick, I gave 4 stars. And then Kite Runner, which was Melody's pick, I gave 5 stars. If I was going to rank these, the order from like them the most to the least, although I didn't dislike any of these books, which is a great win. My friends gave me great picks. I would go number 1, The Duke Who Didn't. Number 2, Kite Runner. Number 3, House of Salt and Sorrows. Number 4, With the Fire on High. Number 5, Glass Hotel. And number 6, Ash Princess. The only 2 that I'm not for sure about in those positions is With the Fire on High and House of Salt and Sorrows. I really think they could be tied for 3rd, but they're very different books. So like, it's hard, I don't know. That was my experiment. If you liked it, go ahead and give this a big thumbs up. All of their channels will be linked down below, so go check them out. Most of them are also making videos along the same vein where they're reading some of my favorite books. Spoiler alert, some of them didn't like my books as much as I liked theirs, but that's fine. Comment down below, have you read any of these books? Have you read any of your friends' favorite books? Tell me all about books and friend recommendations down below. I don't know. Off the cuff today. Whatever. Comment whatever you want. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!